So on the final day of his sophomore year of high school, a baseball bat literally just slipped from a player's hands.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, during a full swing. It flew through the air and struck James Clear directly between the eyes.
I mean, that is just horrific.
It really is. The sheer kinetic force crushed his nose into this distorted U shape. The soft tissue of his brain just slammed against the inside of his skull.
Which is incredibly dangerous.
Exactly. He suffered multiple skull fractures, 2 shattered eye sockets, and his brain began to swell so rapidly that he actually lost consciousness and stopped breathing entirely.
Right, because it was a catastrophic trauma. The medical teams had to airlift him to a specialized hospital. They put him in a medically induced coma.
Yeah.
And they had to hook him up to a ventilator just to keep him alive. And, when he finally woke up, the physical damage was really just the beginning.
Because his left eye was protruding from its socket, right?
Yes. He suffered from this debilitating double vision that lasted for weeks. He was completely stripped of his independence. He couldn't even drive a car for 8 months.
And I think perhaps the most devastating blow for him, psychologically, was the total destruction of his identity.
Because he was an athlete.
Right. His entire life revolved around sports. His dad had played professional baseball for the St. Louis Cardinals, and that was James's dream too.
But obviously the accident changed all of that.
Yeah. A year after the accident, when he finally tried to return to the field, he was the only junior cut from the varsity baseball team. He just found himself sitting in his car, mindlessly flipping through the radio stations, crying. His world had completely collapsed.
Which brings us to the core of what we are unpacking today. Because, 6 years after that moment of total devastation, James Clear wasn't just playing baseball again.
No, he was dominating.
Exactly. He was selected as the top male athlete at Denison University and named to the ESPN Academic All-America team.
Which is insane.
It is. It's an honor given to only 33 players in the entire United States.
So welcome to this deep dive into the absolute masterclass of human behavior change, which is the philosophy behind atomic habits.
It's such a vital topic.
It really is. Because if you're listening right now, you are likely someone relentlessly pursuing growth. You want to optimize your time, or maybe build a business, get fit, or just, finally clear the mental clutter.
But you probably also feel the crushing weight of modern hustle culture.
Yes. This toxic idea that to change your life, you need a cinematic overnight overhaul. Like you need to wake up tomorrow at 4 a.m., drink a green smoothie, run 10 miles, and just be a fundamentally different human being.
Which is just not how human neurology works.
Not at all. So today, we are dismantling that myth entirely. We are taking that pressure completely off your shoulders.
We're going to look at the granular, microscopic reality of how human beings actually change.
Right.
This isn't a conversation about sheer willpower or motivational quotes. We're going to deconstruct the actual neurology of the basal ganglia, the psychology of identity formation, and the raw mathematics of marginal gains.
And we'll expose why setting ambitious goals might actually be the very thing guaranteeing your failure.
Yeah, that part is mind-blowing.
It really challenges everything we're taught. We'll explore how true transformation happens in the invisible margins of your day. And the proof of this is right there in that recovery story.
Because James Clear didn't bounce back from a shattered skull through some heroic lightning bolt epiphany.
No, when he arrived at college, his life was completely chaotic. He was at the absolute bottom of the roster. He didn't set a massive goal to become an All-American.
He looked at his chaotic reality and just focused on the smallest possible units of control.
Exactly. While other college freshmen were staying up until 3 a.m. playing video games, he simply built a routine of going to sleep early.
Such a small thing.
Right. And he made sure his dorm room was meticulously clean.
Well, we have to look at the psychology of what those tiny acts actually accomplish in a traumatized mind.
Walk me through that.
When your life has been entirely derailed by forces completely outside your control, like a flying baseball bat, your locus of control is shattered. You feel completely helpless.
Because life just happened to you.
Right. So, making a bed or going to sleep at a consistent time doesn't instantly make you a better athlete. But it reestablishes an internal locus of control. It rebuilds a foundational sense of agency.
Oh, I love that. It's the psychological scaffolding. You just can't build a skyscraper on a swamp.
Exactly.
Those tiny, seemingly insignificant habits gave him a baseline of confidence, and that confidence bled into his study habits, which earned him straight A's.
And the discipline of studying bled into the weight room.
Yeah, over years. Not days, not weeks, but years. He systematically rebuilt his physical frame. He packed on 30 pounds of lean muscle. By his junior year, he was team captain. It was a pure aggregation of tiny microscopic advantages.
And to really understand the sheer power of this aggregation, we need to leave the realm of individual trauma for a second.
Okay, where we go?
We need to look at one of the most stunning organizational turnarounds in modern sports history. We need to look at the British cycling team in the early 2000s.
Oh, this is the perfect scale up. Let's paint the picture for the listener, because it's 2003, right? And for nearly a century, British professional cycling wasn't just bad. They were the laughingstock of the entire athletic world.
It was really grim.
Since 1908, they had won exactly one single gold medal at the Olympic Games. In 110 years, no British rider had ever won the Tour de France.
Their reputation was so incredibly abysmal that when they tried to purchase state-of-the-art bicycles, one of the top manufacturers in Europe literally refused to sell them gear.
Wait, really? A company refused their money?
Yes, the manufacturer actually feared that if other professionals saw the British team riding their bikes, it would permanently damage the brand's reputation.
That is a staggering level of professional embarrassment. Just brutal.
So the governing body hires a new performance director, Dave Brailsford.
Now, conventional sports management dictates that when a team is this historically terrible, you need a radical purge.
Right.
You fire the entire roster, you bring in really expensive superstars, you overhaul the entire philosophy with sweeping, dramatic changes.
But Brailsford ignores all of that. He comes in with a philosophy he called the aggregation of marginal gains.
Which sounds very corporate, but what did it actually mean?
His thesis was radically simple, but incredibly tedious to execute. He believed that if you broke down every single conceivable component that goes into riding a bicycle, and you improved each of those components by just 1%, the compounded result would be a massive, unbeatable advantage.
And we aren't just talking about the aerodynamics of the helmet or the weight of the bike frame, because everyone looks at that.
No, they went into the absolute minutia.
Yeah, they redesigned the bike seats for micro comfort. They rubbed specific types of alcohol on the tires to get a fractional increase in grip on the asphalt.
They even had riders wear electrically heated overshorts to maintain exact muscle temperatures while they waited for a race to start.
But the brilliance of Brailsford's system is that it extended far beyond the bicycle itself, right?
Exactly. He applied the 1% rule to the athlete's peripheral environment. They tested various massage gels to track which specific compound led to the fastest cellular muscle recovery.
Right.
They even hired a surgeon, not to operate on sports injuries, but to teach the riders the medically optimal way to wash their hands.
Okay, let's pause right there, because teaching adults how to wash their hands sounds completely disconnected from winning a cycling race. Walk me through the causality of that. How does soap win a gold medal?
Well, it's pure systems thinking. A professional athlete's greatest enemy isn't always the competition. It's an interruption in the training schedule.
Because they lose momentum.
Exactly. If a rider catches a common cold, they lose 3 to 5 days of peak training. They lose cardiovascular stamina. It disrupts their sleep schedule.
Ah, I see.
So by having a surgeon teach flawless hand washing techniques, they drastically reduce the probability of viral infections. Fewer infections meant 0 missed training days. Uninterrupted training compounds over months into a massive physical advantage. So the soap was actually protecting the training streak.
That is brilliant. It's completely reframing the problem. They even figured out the precise type of pillow and mattress that provided the deepest REM sleep for each individual rider.
And they traveled with them to hotels?
Yeah. They even painted the inside of the team transport truck stark white, just so they could spot microscopic bits of dust that might degrade the finely tuned mechanics of the bikes.
It sounds borderline neurotic.
It totally does.
Yeah.
But what were the actual undeniable results of doing all this?
The results defied every expectation in the sporting world. Just 5 years after Brailsford implemented this system, the British team arrived at the 2008 Olympic Games in Beijing and absolutely obliterated the competition.
Just wipe the floor with them.
They won 60% of all the gold medals available in track and road cycling.
That is absurd.
And 4 years later, at the London Olympics, they set 9 Olympic records and 7 world records.
And they finally cracked the Tour de France. Bradley Wiggins became the first British rider to win it. Then Chris Froome won it the next year and just kept winning. They won 5 Tour de France titles in 6 years.
It is arguably the most successful run in the history of the sport. From a team that literally couldn't buy a bike to 178 world championships and 66 Olympic or Paralympic gold medals in a single decade.
And it wasn't powered by a sudden influx of superhuman genetics. It was powered by the mathematical certainty of marginal gains.
Let's dig into that math, because this is where the philosophy becomes undeniable for anyone listening.
Yeah, lay it out.
If you can get just 1% better at something each day for one full year, the compound interest of that improvement means you end up 37.78 times better by the end of the year.
Not 37% better.
Right, 37 times better.
That is huge.
Conversely, if you degrade by just 1% every day, your baseline drops nearly to zero. We drastically underestimate the value of making a small improvement on a daily basis, and we wildly overestimate the importance of one defining moment.
To make this hyper relatable, let's step away from the math for a second and use a great Indian example. Think about taking a flight from Mumbai to New Delhi.
Okay.
You're sitting on the tarmac in Mumbai. The pilot enters the coordinates. But right before takeoff, the nose of the plane is shifted by just a few degrees. Not even a visible amount to anyone looking out the window, just a tiny fraction of an angle.
Right, you wouldn't feel that at all.
Exactly. During the initial ascent, you wouldn't notice a single thing. But as you travel over the immense distance of the Indian subcontinent, that microscopic shift compounds.
Because of the distance.
Yes. You don't land in New Delhi. You end up hundreds of kilometers away in Lahore or Kathmandu.
The trajectory is everything. A microscopic shift in your daily habits might not yield a measurable difference on a random Tuesday, but over the span of a decade, it dictates whether you end up financially free or bankrupt.
Or physically thriving versus fighting chronic disease.
Exactly. Your outcomes are simply a lagging measure of your habits.
I love that phrase, a lagging measure. Your net worth is a lagging measure of your financial habits. Your physical weight is a lagging measure of your eating habits. Even your mental clutter is a lagging measure of your organizational habits.
You get exactly what you repeat.
And this is where we have to issue a serious warning, I think, because compounding is a fundamentally agnostic force.
Yes, it does not care whether it is working for you or against you.
Habits are a total double-edged sword.
Positive compounding is obvious, right? Learning one new coding language concept today connects to yesterday's concept, and suddenly you understand complex algorithms. But negative compounding is deeply insidious.
Give me an example of negative compounding that we might not even notice.
Stress. Think about it. Getting stuck in brutal traffic in Mumbai doesn't cause a heart attack. An argument with a coworker doesn't trigger clinical depression overnight. But if you have a habit of internalizing daily friction, that cortisol release compounds.
It adds up.
It actually alters your neurochemistry over time. Blood pressure elevates permanently, your immune response drops.
And negative thoughts compound in the exact same way.
Absolutely. If you routinely interpret minor setbacks as proof that you are incompetent, you physically rewire your brain to seek out evidence of your incompetence. You build a neurological superhighway of self-doubt.
Okay, wait. Let me challenge this. If this mathematical law of compounding is an absolute reality, if 1% better truly makes me 37 times better and negative compounding destroys me, why do we all still fail?
What do you mean?
I mean, why do I get highly motivated, eat perfectly portioned meals for 12 days, go to the gym, step on the scale, see absolutely no change, and then immediately order a massive pizza and just give up?
You give up because human beings are biologically wired to expect linear progress.
Explain that.
We operate on this deeply ingrained assumption that effort and reward have a 1-to-1 ratio. If I put in 10 units of effort today, I should immediately receive 10 units of visible result tomorrow.
Which sounds totally logical.
It does, but the universe doesn't operate on linear progress. The most powerful outcomes are delayed. To understand why you quit the gym after 12 days, you have to understand the plateau of latent potential.
The plateau of latent potential. Break that down for me.
Imagine you are sitting in a room. If it is freezing cold, you can see your breath in the air. Right in front of you, sitting on a table, is an ice cube.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
The ambient temperature in the room is exactly 25 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, slowly the room begins to heat up. 26 degrees, you stare at the ice cube. Nothing happens.
Right.
27 degrees, 28 degrees, 29 degrees, still absolutely no physical change in the ice.
It just looks like a block of ice.
Exactly. You are putting energy into the room, you are heating it up, but you are seeing zero visible results. 30 degrees, 31 degrees. At this point, most people walk away convinced the effort is completely useless.
Because I'm frustrated.
Yes. And then the temperature hits 32 degrees.
The melting point.
Exactly. the ice begins to melt.
Yeah.
Now, did that final 1 degree shift from 31 to 32 degrees cause the ice to melt all on its own?
No, of course not.
Right. It was the culmination of all the invisible temperature increases that preceded it. The work you put into heating the room wasn't wasted. It was simply being stored.
Well, that reframes everything. When you are grinding away, like studying for an exam or building a side hustle or going to the gym, and you hit that wall where nothing seems to be happening, you are just in the valley of disappointment.
You haven't failed.
Your kinetic energy is just being stored up in the environment.
And when you finally break through that plateau, when the ice finally melts, society will look at you and call you an overnight success.
Because they didn't see the work.
Because the world only pays attention to the dramatic, visible event. They only see the melting ice. They never see the hours spent raising the temperature from 25 to 31 degrees.
It totally reminds me of the geological pressure of tectonic plates.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Yeah, they grind against each other beneath the Earth's crust for millions of years. Immense, unfathomable tension is building up every single day, but on the surface, everything looks completely still. You could literally build a massive city on top of it and never know.
And then?
One day, the friction reaches a critical threshold and a massive earthquake erupts. The change takes millennia, but the visible result happens in seconds.
The social reformer Jacob Riis famously described this exact phenomenon by watching stonecutters. He noted that a stonecutter might hammer away at a rock 100 times without so much as a microscopic crack showing on the surface.
Right.
But on the 101st blow, the massive stone splits perfectly in two. It wasn't the final blow that split the rock. It was the accumulated force of the 100 blows before it.
So, if progress is inherently delayed, and if we have to spend weeks, months, or even years in this valley of disappointment where our effort is totally invisible, how do we survive that?
It's the ultimate question.
How do we keep swinging the hammer when we can't see the crack? Because everything I've ever been taught says that to stay motivated, I need to set a highly specific, ambitious goal. I need a vision board. I need a SMART goal.
Well, I know this completely violates decades of standard self-help advice, but if you want to survive the valley of disappointment and achieve massive things, you actually need to completely abandon your goals.
Why?
You need to drop them entirely.
Hold on. Drop my goals. That sounds incredibly nihilistic. If I drop my goals, how do I know I'm not just wandering aimlessly through life?
Because goals are fundamentally flawed mechanisms for long-term behavioral change. When you analyze human behavior, you realize that a goal-oriented mindset actually creates massive obstacles. The source material identifies 4 fatal flaws with focusing on goals.
Okay, let's tear them down one by one. What is the first flaw?
The first flaw is pure survivorship bias.
Oh, I've heard of this.
We have this romanticized idea that highly successful people achieve their status because they set incredibly ambitious goals. But we only study the winners.
We ignore everyone else.
Exactly. If you look at any competition, whether it's the Olympic Games or thousands of candidates applying for a single corporate executive position, every single person in that arena has the exact same goal.
The loser wanted the gold medal just as badly as the winner.
Precisely. If both the successful and the unsuccessful people share the exact same goal, then the goal itself cannot be the variable that dictates success.
The goal is completely neutral.
Yes. The British cycling team had the explicit goal of winning the Tour de France for 110 years, and it did nothing for them. It was only when they ignored the goal and implemented a rigorous system of marginal improvements that the outcome finally shifted.
That makes total sense. Okay, what's the second problem with goals?
Achieving a goal only changes your life for a fleeting moment. It treats a symptom without addressing the underlying disease.
Give me a practical example of that.
Imagine your home office is a chaotic disaster zone. Papers everywhere, empty teacups piled up. You get stressed, so you set a goal. You say, I am going to clean this office on Saturday.
Right.
You summon a massive burst of willpower. You spend 4 hours scrubbing and organizing, and you achieve your goal. You have a pristine office.
Sounds great.
But if you don't change the sloppy, rushed habits that led to the mess in the first place, you will be sitting in a chaotic disaster zone again in exactly 2 weeks.
Oh, I've done that so many times. You're just constantly treating the outcome instead of fixing the machine that actually produces the outcome. It's like bailing water out of a sinking boat without ever patching the hole in the hull.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Which leads to the third problem. Goals actively restrict your daily happiness.
How so?
A goal inherently creates an either-or paradigm in your brain. The implicit assumption behind every goal is, I will be happy once I achieve this specific milestone.
Oh, the conditional happiness trap.
Yes. You are literally deferring your happiness to an imaginary point in the future. I'll be happy when I lose 20 pounds. I'll be happy when I get that promotion.
Right.
It means that for the months or years you are striving, you are consciously living in a state of failure. You have boxed yourself in. If you achieve it, you allow yourself to feel good. If you fall short, you are a profound disappointment.
It's a mental trap. You spend 99% of your life feeling inadequate, just waiting for a 1% moment of triumph.
Exactly.
And that leads directly to the fourth flaw, which I think is actually the most dangerous one, the yo-yo effect.
The yo-yo effect demonstrates how goals are actually at war with long-term progress. We see this acutely in endurance sports. A person decides they want to run a marathon. They hire a coach, they wake up at 5 a.m., they run through the rain for 6 months, they are intensely disciplined.
And then?
Finally, race day arrives. They cross the finish line, they get the medal, they achieve the goal. And then they stop running completely.
I've seen this in academia too. It's so common. Think about the massive, hyper-competitive exams in India, like the UPSC civil services exams.
Absolutely.
Aspirants will lock themselves in a room for 3 years, studying 16 hours a day. It is an all-consuming goal. But what happens to so many of them after they pass the exam and get the posting? They stop reading.
Their motivation is gone.
They stop intellectually challenging themselves. The goal was the only thing holding their behavior together, and once the goal vanishes, the discipline just evaporates.
The purpose of setting goals is to win the game. But the purpose of building systems is to continue playing the game.
I love that distinction.
True long-term thinking is completely goalless thinking. It's not about any single accomplishment. It is about an endless cycle of refinement and continuous improvement.
So we abandon the goal and we focus entirely on the system. If you're an entrepreneur, your goal is to build $1 million company. But your system is your daily process of testing marketing copy, conducting user interviews, and refining product features.
Right.
If you ignored the $1 million and just executed the system flawlessly every day, you'd get the money anyway.
The legendary NFL coach Bill Walsh famously said, "The score takes care of itself." If you execute the system, how you practice, how you eat, how you study film, the points on the board naturally resolve in your favor.
This reminds me of the Dabawallas in Mumbai.
Oh, tell me about them.
For listeners who don't know, this is a massive lunchbox delivery system. They deliver hundreds of thousands of home-cooked meals to office workers every single day across a sprawling, chaotic metropolis.
And Mumbai traffic is no joke.
Exactly. And they do it almost entirely without modern technology. They don't have a massive corporate goal taped to a wall somewhere. They just have an absolutely flawless, color-coded, localized sorting system.
That's fascinating.
They focus entirely on the immediate handoff of the lunchbox at the next train station. And because their system is so incredibly refined, Harvard Business School actually studied them and found they operate at a 6 Sigma level of efficiency.
Which means what, practically?
It means they make roughly 1 mistake in every 6 million deliveries. The system literally is the success.
That is a phenomenal example of systems over goals. But here is the critical pivot. If you want to commit to a system, if you want to be someone who executes flawlessly every day, you have to dig much deeper than simply writing a new schedule on your calendar.
Why isn't a schedule enough?
Because changing your daily routine will not last unless you fundamentally change how you view yourself.
So we are moving from the external to the internal, the psychology of change.
Yes. To understand this, we have to look at what the text calls the onion of behavior change.
Okay, picture an onion.
Imagine a cross-section of an onion with 3 concentric circles. The outermost layer is outcomes. This is what you get: losing weight, writing a book, winning a championship.
Got it.
The middle layer is processes. This is what you do: going to the gym, sitting at your desk to type, practicing free throws.
And most people stop right there. They figure out what they want, the outcome, and they write down a plan to get it, the process.
And that is exactly why they fail. Because they ignore the deepest, innermost core of the onion: identity.
Identity.
Identity is what you fundamentally believe about yourself, your worldview, and your deepest assumptions.
So outcomes are what you get. Processes are what you do. Identity is what you believe.
The massive mistake we all make is the direction of our attempted change. We focus entirely on outcome-based habits. We work from the outside of the onion inward.
Can you give an example?
We say, I want to be thin, which is the outcome.
Yeah.
So if I eat salads, the process, I will become a healthy person, the identity.
Right, that's how everyone thinks.
But the arrows have to point the other way. You must build identity-based habits.
Yeah.
You have to start from the core and radiate outward. You start by defining who you wish to become and let the processes and outcomes naturally follow.
The book has a fantastic illustration of this that I think everyone can really relate to. Imagine two different people who are actively trying to quit smoking cigarettes. They are at a party and someone offers them a smoke. The first person waves their hand and says, "No thanks, I'm trying to quit."
Now, that sounds like a perfectly reasonable response.
It does.
But listen to the psychology underneath those words. That is an outcome-based response. This person fundamentally still believes at their core identity level that they are a smoker.
Wow.
They are a smoker who is temporarily attempting to perform a non-smoking action. They are hoping their behavior will change while carrying around their exact same self-image.
Their identity is in direct conflict with their process. It's a tug of war. Now, the second person is offered the exact same cigarette, but they reply, "No thanks, I'm not a smoker."
The semantic difference is incredibly subtle, but the psychological shift is absolute.
It's massive.
The second person is not trying to do anything. Smoking is a relic of their past life. It is no longer part of their self-concept. When you try to change your behavior without shifting your identity, you are fighting a losing war against your own brain.
Because your brain wants to align with your beliefs.
Yes. If you want better health, but your core identity prioritizes immediate comfort over discipline, you'll eventually abandon the gym. Behavior that is incongruent with the self will not last.
Okay, I conceptually agree with this, but let me push back hard right here.
Go for it.
I'm an analytical person. My brain relies on evidence. I can't just wake up tomorrow, look in the bathroom mirror, and tell myself I am a world-class marathon runner, when the reality is I get winded walking up a flight of stairs. My brain knows I am lying. It feels totally delusional. How do you actually tangibly change your identity without just brainwashing yourself?
You don't magically declare a new identity. You have to earn it.
How?
And you earn it through the mechanism of habits. Let's look at the etymology of the word identity. It derives from the Latin word essentitas, which means being, and the word identitum, which translates to repeatedly.
Repeatedly being.
Yes, your identity is quite literally your repeated beingness.
Repeated beingness. So my identity isn't some fixed trait I was born with. It's just the sum total of what I do over and over again.
Exactly. Every single action you take is a physical vote for the type of person you wish to become. No single instance transforms your beliefs overnight.
Right.
Writing one paragraph today does not magically convince your brain that you are a novelist. But if you write one paragraph every day for 100 days, the votes start to stack up. You are providing undeniable physical evidence to your brain that you are a writer.
And like any election, you don't need a unanimous vote to win. You don't have to be perfect.
That is a vital point for overcoming perfectionism. If you eat a healthy diet all week and then eat an entire pizza on Friday night, you haven't destroyed your identity.
You just cast one vote for a bad habit.
Exactly. But as long as the majority of your votes, the majority of your daily actions are cast for the healthy identity, you win the election. You become a reader by reading one page. You become a runner by lacing up your shoes.
Okay, this is the perfect transition. We understand the math of compounding. We know we must abandon goals for systems. We know that the ultimate aim of the system is to shift our core identity by casting daily votes. But how do we actually construct the voting booths? How do we hack our own neurology to make these habits stick in the real physical world?
To do that, we have to look under the hood at how the brain actually processes a habit. Neurologically, every single habit proceeds through 4 distinct stages in the exact same order.
What are they?
Cue, craving, response, and reward. This is an endless high-speed feedback loop running in the background of your consciousness every waking second.
Break those 4 down for me.
The cue is the trigger. It signals your brain that a reward is nearby. The craving is the motivational force. It's the physiological desire to obtain the reward.
Okay.
The response is the actual physical action or thought you perform, and the reward is the end goal that satisfies the craving.
It's basically our brain automating solutions to recurring problems just to save energy.
Yes, exactly.
For example, my phone vibrates in my pocket. That's the cue. My brain instantly wonders who is trying to contact me, creating a sense of anticipation. That's the craving. I physically pull the phone out of my pocket and unlock the screen. That's the response. I read the text message and satisfy my curiosity. That's the reward. And because it felt satisfying, my brain wires the vibration of the phone tightly to the action of grabbing it.
Yes, and once you understand that 4-step loop, you can reverse engineer it. James Clear took this neurological loop and created the 4 laws of behavior change.
Let's hear them.
If you want to build a good habit, you must make the cue obvious. You must make the craving attractive. You must make the response easy. And you must make the reward satisfying.
Let's dive deep into law number 1. Make it obvious. The biggest lie we tell ourselves is that we lack motivation, when in reality, we just lack clarity. We say things like, I really need to start eating healthier. What does that even mean? It's completely abstract.
The brain cannot execute abstract commands efficiently. To make a cue obvious, you have to utilize what researchers call implementation intentions.
Implementation intentions.
Hundreds of psychological studies have proven that if you want to successfully execute a behavior, you must create a highly specific plan that identifies the exact time and location the behavior will occur.
The formula is simple. I will perform this behavior at this time in this location. Instead of, I will work out more, you write down, I will lift weights for 45 minutes at 6:00 a.m. at the neighborhood gym.
The data on this is fascinating. During elections, researchers have found that simply asking people, are you going to vote, yields moderate results.
Right.
But when they ask, what specific route will you drive to the polling station? What time will you leave your house? Where will you park your car? Voter turnout increases dramatically. By pre-planning the logistics, you remove the friction of decision-making in the moment.
You aren't waking up at 6 a.m. and asking yourself, do I feel motivated to work out today? Motivation is completely irrelevant. The decision was already made the night before.
Exactly.
But we can take this a step further through habit stacking.
Habit stacking leverages a psychological phenomenon known as the Diderot effect, which states that obtaining a new possession or performing a certain action often creates a spiral of consumption that leads to additional actions.
So you take a habit you already do effortlessly every single day, and you stack your new desired behavior directly on top of it.
Yes. After I perform my current habit, I will perform my new habit.
So in an Indian context, if you want to start meditating, you don't just say, I'll meditate tomorrow. You say, after I boil the water to make my morning chai, I will sit at the kitchen table and meditate for 2 minutes.
Boiling water for chai is already hardwired into your basal ganglia. You don't even think about it. By tying the meditation directly to the chai, the making of the tea itself becomes the blindingly obvious trigger.
But the ultimate way to make cues obvious is to manipulate the physical space around us. Environment design. We like to think we are in total control of our choices, but so much of our behavior is dictated by the architecture of the rooms we sit in.
Exactly. Visual cues are the greatest catalyst for human behavior. There is a classic study from the 1970s energy crisis involving a Dutch suburb.
What happened there?
Researchers noticed that some houses in this specific neighborhood use 30% less electricity than their immediate neighbors, even though the houses were identical in size and layout.
Why the massive discrepancy?
It came down to a single architectural decision. In the houses that used less power, the electrical meter was installed in the main hallway. It was highly visible every time the family walked past. In the houses that consumed vast amounts of energy, the meters were tucked away down in the dark basement, out of sight, out of mind. When the visual cue of energy consumption was obvious, the behavior changed automatically.
You have to become the architect of your environment, not the victim of it. If you want to read more books, don't leave the book on a shelf in the spare bedroom. Put it directly in the center of your pillow so you have to physically pick it up to go to sleep. If you want to drink more water, fill 5 bottles every morning and place them in every room you walk through. Make the right choice the path of least resistance.
And conversely, you must remove the cues for bad habits. If you can't focus on work, take your phone and put it in a completely different room. A core tenet of environment design is one space, one use.
I struggle with this one.
The brain creates highly specific associations with physical locations. If you work on your laptop while sitting in bed, your brain associates the bed with cognitive stress, emails, and deadlines. Then, when you try to sleep in that same bed, your brain is confused. It fires off stress hormones because the environment is signaling work.
If you want a predictable habit, you must build a predictable environment. Okay, so we've made the cue obvious. Now we move to law 2, make it attractive. And this is where we have to talk about dopamine.
Dopamine is the biological engine of desire. For a long time, scientists believed dopamine was simply the pleasure chemical. But modern neuroscience has revealed something far more nuanced. Dopamine is not primarily released when you experience a reward. It is released in massive spikes when you anticipate a reward.
Anticipation is everything. It's why planning a vacation often feels more exciting than the actual vacation. It's the craving that drives the action. So, to make a habit attractive, we have to artificially spike that anticipation.
To do this, we use a strategy called temptation bundling.
How does that work?
This works by linking an action you want to do with an action you need to do. You are using the high dopamine anticipation of a desired activity to pull you through the friction of a difficult task.
Let's use an Indian context here again.
Yeah.
Say you have to finish a dense, incredibly boring stack of financial paperwork for your taxes, an action you need to do.
Yes.
But there's a massive cricket match on television, say India versus Australia, and you desperately want to watch it. You create a binding rule. I'm only allowed to turn on the cricket match while I have the paperwork open in front of me. Or, for every document I complete, I get to watch 1 over of the match.
Over time, the neurological association shifts. You actually begin to look forward to the paperwork because your brain realizes that sitting down with the tax documents is the gateway to the dopamine hit of watching the cricket match.
But beyond just hacking our own dopamine, there's a massive sociological component to making things attractive. We are deeply tribal creatures. We desperately want to fit in.
We survived evolutionary history by staying with the herd. Being exiled from the tribe meant death. Consequently, we are biologically hardwired to adopt the habits, beliefs, and behaviors of the people immediately surrounding us.
We soak up the social norms of our environment like a sponge.
So, if you want to build a new habit effortlessly, the ultimate life hack is to join a culture where your desired behavior is already the normal behavior.
Exactly. And it is even more powerful if you join a group where you already share a secondary commonality. The source text brings up a company called Nerd Fitness.
Oh, I love this example.
For many people who identify as nerds or gamers, walking into a traditional hyper-masculine commercial gym is an intimidating, highly unattractive prospect. It feels like entering a hostile tribe.
But Nerd Fitness built a community of people who love comic books, Star Wars, and video games, who also want to get in shape.
Right.
Suddenly, you aren't an outsider. You are surrounded by people who speak your cultural language, and their baseline behavior happens to be exercising. Your identity shifts from singular to shared.
You aren't just saying, I am trying to lift weights. You look around the room and realize we are the type of people who lift weights.
That shared identity reinforces your personal identity. It makes the grueling process of change highly attractive because it fulfills our deepest psychological need for belonging.
Which brings us to law number 3, make it easy. I think this is where the most ambitious people completely self-sabotage. We confuse being in motion with actually taking action. There is a brilliant story about a photography professor that perfectly illustrates this trap.
Yes. A professor at the University of Florida divided his film photography students into 2 separate groups on the first day of class.
Okay.
The first group was the quantity group. Their grading rubric was brutally simple. They would be graded solely on the raw number of photos they submitted. Submit 100 photos, you get an A, 90 photos, a B. The photos could be entirely out of focus or poorly framed. It didn't matter. Just produce volume.
And the second group?
The second group was the quality group. Their instructions were the exact opposite. They only needed to submit 1 single photograph for the entire semester. But to get an A, that single photograph had to be an absolute masterpiece. Perfect lighting, perfect composition, flawless execution.
So quantity versus quality. At the end of the term, the professor laid out all the photos, and the results were entirely counterintuitive. Every single one of the best, most breathtaking, technically proficient photographs came from the quantity group. The quality group produced almost nothing of value.
Because the quality group fell into the trap of motion.
Explain the difference.
They sat in their dorm rooms for months, theorizing about the perfect lighting setup, reading textbooks on exposure, arguing about the best film grain. They were preparing, planning, and strategizing. Motion feels productive, but it never produces a tangible outcome.
Meanwhile, the quantity group was out in the real world taking action. They were shooting hundreds of terrible photos, messing up the exposure, ruining the film in the darkroom. But through that sheer volume of failure and repetition, they learned the actual mechanics of the craft. They iterated.
We do this constantly in our own lives.
Oh, all the time.
We want to lose weight, so we spend 3 weeks researching the perfect diet protocol, downloading macro tracking apps, and buying new running shoes. We feel incredibly productive, but we haven't lost a single ounce because we haven't taken action. We just prepared.
And we do this because motion protects us from the pain of failure. If I am outlining 20 different business ideas, I feel like an entrepreneur, but I haven't actually launched a product that could get rejected by the market.
The neurology behind why action trumps motion is deeply tied to a concept called long-term potentiation, which is often summarized by Hebb's law.
Which is?
Neurons that fire together wire together.
Walk me through the actual brain science of that. What physically happens when I repeat a habit?
Every time you perform an action, say playing a chord on a guitar, a specific neural pathway in your brain lights up. When you first start, that pathway is weak. The electrical signal struggles to get through, which is why your fingers feel clumsy.
Right.
But every single time you repeat that action, the physical structure of your brain changes. A fatty tissue called myelin begins to wrap tightly around those specific nerve fibers.
It's like adding thicker insulation to a copper electrical wire.
Precisely. The thicker the myelin sheath becomes, the faster and more efficiently the electrical signal travels. After thousands of repetitions, that neural pathway is so heavily insulated that the behavior becomes entirely automatic. You play the chord without conscious thought.
This completely destroys the old self-help myth that people always ask. How many days does it take to form a habit? Is it 21 days? Is it 60 days? Time has absolutely nothing to do with it.
Time is the wrong metric entirely. The brain doesn't care if 21 days have passed. The brain only cares about the frequency of the electrical signal.
It's about reps.
The true question is, how many times does it take? You could perform a habit once a week for a year and never automate it. Or you could perform it 50 times in 3 days and cross what we call the habit line, where the behavior shifts from conscious effort to unconscious routine. Frequency builds the myelin.
And to get that high frequency of repetition, the habit has to be ridiculously easy. We are ruled by the law of least effort. Human beings will naturally, unconsciously gravitate toward the option that requires the least amount of friction.
If you look at history, the reduction of friction is the driving force behind massive societal shifts. In the 1970s, Japanese electronics manufacturing completely disrupted the global market.
How did they do it?
While American companies were focused on grand innovations, Japanese firms relentlessly practiced addition by subtraction. They combed through their assembly lines, found every microscopic point of friction, a worker having to turn their body awkwardly, a tool placed too far away, and eliminated it.
Wow!
By subtracting wasted effort, they operated so efficiently that no one could compete.
The book also points out an even grander historical example, the spread of agriculture itself. Why did farming spread so rapidly across Europe and Asia, but took incredibly long to spread down the Americas? It was dictated by the geographical axis.
Yes, Europe and Asia lie on an east-west axis. The Americas lie on a north-south axis. This is crucial because land masses on an east-west axis share roughly the same latitude, meaning they share the same climate, the same seasonal changes, and the same amount of sunlight.
So if you figure out how to grow wheat in one region, you can easily travel 500 miles east or west and plant that same wheat. The environment offers almost zero friction.
Exactly. But if you try to travel 500 miles north or south, the climate changes drastically. You move from temperate forests to tropical jungles to arid deserts. Crops would require massive genetic mutations to survive the new environment. The north-south axis presented immense friction.
So because the east-west axis made agriculture easy, food production exploded, populations surged, and those civilizations developed advanced technology much faster. The physical shape of the continents dictated human progress based entirely on the law of least effort.
So if the law of least effort governs everything from corporate manufacturing to the dawn of civilization, how do we use it in our living rooms on a Tuesday night?
We implement the 2-minute rule. Whenever you are trying to establish a new habit, you must scale it down until it takes 2 minutes or less to perform.
Give me some examples.
Read before bed each night becomes read one single page. Do a 30-minute yoga routine becomes take my yoga mat out of the closet. Study for the exam becomes open my notebook.
I know it sounds almost absurd. People say, what is the point of just taking out a yoga mat if I'm not going to stretch? I'm not burning any calories.
Right.
But that objection completely misses the psychological purpose of the exercise. The goal is not to get a workout in. The goal is to master the art of showing up.
Standardize before you optimize.
Yes. A habit must be firmly established in your neurology before it can be improved. You cannot optimize a habit that does not exist. If you force yourself to go to the gym for just 2 minutes every day for a month, you aren't getting fit, but you are casting 30 votes for your new identity.
You are becoming the type of person who shows up.
Once the groove is carved into your brain, then you can expand the 2 minutes into 20 minutes.
So we've made it obvious, we've made it attractive, we've made it easy. The final piece of the puzzle is Law 4. make it satisfying. And this addresses a massive evolutionary glitch in our brains.
We are operating modern lives with Paleolithic hardware. For hundreds of thousands of years, the human brain evolved in what scientists call an immediate return environment. If I see a berry bush, I eat the berry right now, and I immediately get calories. If a lion jumps out of the bushes, I run right now, and I immediately avoid death. Every action had an instant, tangible consequence.
But over the last few centuries, society has rapidly shifted into a delayed return environment. We spend 4 years in university to hopefully get a job later. We save a portion of our paycheck today so we can hopefully retire in 30 years. We lift heavy weights today so we don't have a heart attack a decade from now.
Our environment demands long-term thinking, but our biology is still screaming for instant gratification.
And this evolutionary mismatch is the root cause of every bad habit. Bad habits have an immediate outcome that feels fantastic, but an ultimate outcome that is disastrous. Smoking a cigarette relieves your stress instantly, but gives you lung cancer in 20 years.
Eating a massive box of donuts tastes incredible in the moment, but leads to diabetes.
Good habits are the exact reverse. The immediate outcome is usually painful or boring. Running on a treadmill hurts, but the ultimate outcome is highly rewarding.
This leads to the cardinal rule of behavior change. What is immediately rewarded is repeated. What is immediately punished is avoided.
So how do we fix the mismatch?
To get a good habit to stick in the long run, we have to artificially inject a sense of immediate success into the process. We have to give the Paleolithic brain its berry.
The book shares a great strategy for this. There was a couple who realized they were spending way too much money eating at restaurants. They wanted to build the habit of cooking at home to save for a vacation. But cooking at home is a delayed return. You do all the work, but you don't instantly feel richer.
So they created an immediate visual reward. They opened a dedicated savings account and named it Trip to Europe. Every single time they successfully cooked dinner at home and avoided a restaurant, they immediately transferred $50 into that account.
Seeing that number physically increase on the screen provided the instant dopamine hit their brains craved. They made the invisible progress visible. But we have to be incredibly careful with how we measure that progress, don't we? Measuring things can become toxic.
Yes, and that brings us to Goodhart's Law, named after the British economist Charles Goodhart. The law states, when a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure.
Explain how that ruins our habits.
Measurement is only useful when it guides you and adds context. But when the measurement becomes your ultimate obsession, you will manipulate your behavior in unhealthy ways just to hit the number. If your only measure of health is the number on the bathroom scale, you might resort to starving yourself or taking dangerous supplements just to see the number drop. You hit the target, but you destroy your health.
We see this everywhere. If a corporate call center makes average call duration the target, customer service reps will just hang up on angry customers to keep their call times low.
Exactly.
If an education system makes standardized test scores the ultimate target, teachers will stop teaching critical thinking and just train kids to memorize multiple choice answers. The brain will optimize for whatever game is being scored, regardless of the real-world consequences.
So you must track your habits lightly as a way to ensure you are showing up, but never let the metric replace the core identity you are trying to build.
Okay, let's say I've done all of this. I've built the system, I'm casting the votes, I've tracked it healthfully. How do I not get utterly mind-numbingly bored doing the exact same optimal routine every single day?
Boredom is actually the greatest threat to success, not failure. When a habit becomes fully automated, it stops being engaging. To counter this, you have to apply the Goldilocks rule.
The Goldilocks rule.
Humans experience peak motivation when they're working on tasks that are right on the edge of their current abilities. Not too hard, which causes anxiety, not too easy, which causes boredom, just right.
Scientists have actually quantified this, right? They found that you enter a flow state, that feeling of total effortless immersion, when a task is roughly 4% beyond your current skill level. You have to constantly introduce slightly more difficulty.
And you must introduce variable rewards. Think about why social media is so addictive. When you pull down to refresh your feed, you don't know what you are going to get.
True.
It might be a boring ad, or it might be a hilarious video. That unpredictability spikes your dopamine far higher than a guaranteed reward. You have to find ways to keep your habits slightly unpredictable to keep the brain engaged.
But there's a dark side to all this automation. If I just rely on my automated habits forever, I never actually achieve greatness, do I?
No, you don't. Once a skill becomes an automatic habit, Your brain goes on autopilot. You stop noticing microscopic errors. If you type on a computer keyboard every day for 10 years, you don't magically become a world-class competitive typist. Your brain just automates the process as soon as you reach a good enough level.
The habit line becomes a ceiling.
To shatter that ceiling, you need habits plus deliberate practice. You have to consciously rip yourself out of autopilot and focus relentlessly on fixing tiny errors. Look at Pat Riley, the legendary basketball coach who led the Los Angeles Lakers in the 1980s.
The Showtime Lakers.
Exactly. Riley took over a team of incredibly talented players who had automated their skills but were falling short of championships. He implemented a system called the Career Best Effort Program. He asked every single player to improve their output by just 1% over the course of the season.
It's the Dave Brailsford marginal gains philosophy applied to basketball. But how did they measure 1% on a basketball court?
They didn't just look at points scored. They tracked what Riley called spiritual and mental effort. They tracked if a player dove on the hardwood for a loose ball. They tracked if a player ran back on defense after making a mistake instead of complaining to the referee.
The invisible things.
They tracked if a player boxed out their opponent on a rebound, even if they didn't get the ball. By tracking these unglamorous metrics and demanding a conscious 1% improvement, Riley forced his players out of their automated habits and into deliberate practice. They won back-to-back championships.
But pushing yourself that hard requires a massive attachment to your identity as an athlete. And there is a profound danger hidden in that too, identity lock. We talked earlier about how powerful it is to say, I am a runner or I am a CEO. But if you cling too tightly to that specific label, what happens when it's taken away?
It creates an existential crisis. This is incredibly common with military veterans. A person spends 20 years defining their core identity as, I am a soldier. The military dictates their schedule, their clothing, their purpose. Then their service ends.
And then what?
They return to civilian life. And because their identity was so rigid, they completely lose their compass. They suffer deeply because the single label that defined their existence is gone.
I see this with parents who experience empty nest syndrome. Their entire identity for 18 years was, I am a mother. And when the kids leave for college, they don't know who they are. Or going back to the UPSC aspirant whose entire personality was, I am studying for the exam. Whether they pass or fail, they are completely lost afterward.
To prevent identity lock, you must keep your identity flexible. You must focus on the underlying traits, not the specific roles. Instead of defining yourself as I am a soldier, you redefine it as I am the type of person who is deeply disciplined, highly reliable, and thrives on a team.
Instead of I am a CEO, your identity is I am the type of person who builds systems and creates value.
It's like water flowing around a rock. If the role of CEO or soldier is removed, the water doesn't stop. It just adapts to a new channel. The underlying discipline is applied to a new endeavor.
That flexibility is the ultimate mastery of habit formation. We have covered an immense amount of ground today. We've deconstructed the sheer mathematics of 1% improvements, both positive and negative.
We've normalized the valley of disappointment.
We've stripped away the illusion that goals create success, replacing them with the relentless execution of systems. We've peeled back the onion to see that true change is a daily vote for a new identity. We've outlined the mechanics to make those votes obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying.
And it all converges on one beautiful philosophical concept: the Sorites paradox.
What is that?
It is a paradox from ancient Greek philosophy. It asks a simple question. Can one coin make a person rich?
If you give a person a single coin, they're not rich. If you give them 10 coins, they are still not rich. But if you continuously add one coin over and over, eventually you'll cross a threshold where everyone must agree that the person is now wealthy.
Which means that wealth is ultimately created by a single coin, just added at the right moment. The paradox applies perfectly to atomic habits. Can doing 2 minutes of yoga transform your life? If you look at a single day, the logical answer is no.
But what if you add another day, and another, and another? At some imperceptible point, the scales tip, the identity shifts, the ice cube melts.
The holy grail of human transformation is not an isolated lightning bolt of inspiration. It is 1,000 invisible 1% improvements. It is the compounding weight of a system of atomic habits.
To bring all of this out of the theoretical and into your immediate reality, we want to leave you with a final, slightly uncomfortable thought. Look around the space you are currently in. Look at your desk. Look at the apps on your phone's home screen. Look at your kitchen counters. Look at your calendar for tomorrow.
Consider this paradigm shift. What if your current environment is perfectly, flawlessly designed to yield the exact results you're experiencing today? Every frustration, every plateau, every stressor you currently have is not a failure. It is simply the lagging measure of the system you have built, whether you built it consciously or unconsciously.
Your system is doing exactly what it was designed to do. The brutal truth is, if you are unhappy with the outcome, the machine is working perfectly to produce that unhappiness. So the final question for you is this. What is one tiny 2-minute vote you can cast right now?
What is one hidden point of friction you can eliminate?
What is one obvious cue you can place in your hallway today to begin rewiring the entire machine?
You don't need a massive overhaul. You just need to shift the nose of the plane by 3 degrees.
Success is never a finish line you cross. It is an endless, beautiful process of continuous refinement. A massive thank you for spending your time with us today on this deep dive. Keep casting those votes, trust in the delayed returns of the system, and never underestimate the compounding power of your atomic habits.